Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sunset TV. I'm Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. 26th of April is World Intellectual Property Day. Intellectual property is the most valuable asset in the modern age, rewarding as it does the technological innovation that drives human progress. It also helps the global art scene to flourish. Back in 1970, the World Intellectual Property Organization was set up. It was aimed at increasing general awareness and understanding of IP. So what are intellectual properties and intellectual property rights? Essentially, intellectual property refers to the creations of the mind. That includes inventions of all kinds, literary and scientific, artistic works, designs, and a lot of other things. They can also refer to individuals whose reputation itself commands commercial advantage and profit. The World Intellectual Property Organization sets down the rules to confer certain exclusive rights to the inventors or creators of that property so that they can reap commercial benefits from their creative efforts or reputation. Given the astronomical gains that can be made from intellectual properties, what are the issues and the challenges that countries face in determining their ownership? How do we make a fair ecosystem that allows humanity as a whole to benefit equally from inventions and creations? Also, where do countries like India, with a wealth of traditional knowledge, for instance in yoga, medicine, stand globally in terms of the ownership of global intellectual property rights? All this and much more in this edition of Perspective with two distinguished guests joining us virtually on the program. Let me begin by introducing them to you. I'm pleased to have with me Professor Unnat P. Pandit, Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks, DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and Professor Prabodh Ganguly, CEO, Vision IPR. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on this edition of Perspective on Sunset TV. Professor Ganguly, allow me to begin the program today with you. And to start with, help us and our viewers understand the role and importance of a strong IPR ecosystem for the advancement, for the progress of a nation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. When you look at the social development and the innovation value chain, it's very important for us to recognize that society develops because it continuously innovates. Now, when doing these particular innovations, there is always a cause for these creations. How do those causes come about? They come about when people identify the unmet needs of society and then address, those unmet needs of society through creative endeavors. Now, therefore, the creators cause various creations. Different types of creators collaborate. They bring in their knowledge. They bring in their skills together. That's the first part. And then very important is that the government provides a legal platform saying that, well, you have created something and I need to reward you for that particular creation. Right. And therefore, the government provides these laws by which you can protect those particular creations. And therefore, there is some sort of a care and incentive for the creators. That's the first part. The second part is because you've been given these rights, which are monopolies, the government expects something back from the creators, and that is the responsible use of intellectual property rights, number one, and number two, a fair and equitable benefit sharing arrangement between the earnings of the creator and the society. So overall, when you create this useful, friendly, enabling ecosystem, it enables people to create and the society to benefit from such creations. That's the spirit of intellectual property.
Right. Professor Pandit, the government's vision is to make India a knowledge-driven, technology-driven economy. To realize this vision, I heard you speak at one of the recent events on IP where you said IP is going to be the key. So how are we unlocking the potential through this key, which will drive India's progress in the years to come?
Yeah, see, for any societal challenges or even global challenges, we need the creative out-of-box thinking.
Right.
And if we are going into the traditional mode, we are no longer going to address them rapidly. And to the scale and size which India is having the population, we need the out of box thinking, and we need the technology intervention, wherein technology and knowledge has a potential to address the societal challenges. And utilizing the technology and knowledge, government is encouraging creating the IP driven solutions. And these IP driven solutions has a potential to address the societal challenges.
You know, on the Global Innovation Index, we've been seeing how India has been climbing up the ladder since 2015. From the 81st position, we are now to 40th in just about the last 6-7 years. If you could take us through the roadmap that we have followed in recent years that has helped in this kind of transformation. What are the efforts that have been made from the government side to ease the entire procedure?
See, if I highlight the quick reforms which government has implemented, then from 2014 till 2023, there were 9 times rules amendment and the appropriate amendment into the act were done, which is the positive side that government wants the people-friendly IP act and the rules, which encourages the use of IP in applied manner. So many provisions which has the clarification required, government has issued the clarification. This is something which is for the ease of utilizing the IP provisions under the existing act. Secondly, government has encouraged the students and the young professionals to establish the IP driven solution and run their own enterprises. So Startup India movement, where India was nowhere before 2015, now we are the third largest startup ecosystem, and that too innovation driven. And we have a 45 unicorns who are offering the IP driven solutions. So this is something which is the major shift which is happening from the traditional economy to the IP and knowledge driven economy. And this is the future. If we want to achieve the vision of Honorable PM for Amrit Kal, then IP and knowledge driven economy, which has a technology as our superpower. We are frontier in utilizing the futuristic technology platform. So I am very hopeful that all these technological frontiers should be utilized in addressing the societal challenges or challenges which is faced by India and the world. And that is the right pathway for the future growth for India and the world as well.
Absolutely. That is the kind of thrust that we have seen, Professor Ganguly, in recent years through its Make in India initiative, the manner in which the government has tried to, put its backing to the creators, to the young innovators, and the manner in which India's startup ecosystem has mushroomed. The question now is, has our IP regime also changed in that manner to protect the startups, to ensure that investments continue to flow in, and that our regime is such which is trusted by the investors?
Well, if you look at the changes that Professor Ullah just mentioned, very positive, because first of all, what the government has done is that the overall cost has been brought down enormously. For example, earlier, if I was a startup, or if I had to file patents and whatnot from the academic sector, I was put on par with commercial organizations. Today, as a student, as a startup, as an SME and others, the total cost has been brought down by 4 to 6 times. And therefore, that has given an enormous boost to the filing and protection of intellectual property rights. Secondly, it has also created a system of enablers. So there are a large number of enablers who are helping startups, who are helping SMEs to really achieve that sort of output of their intellectual property. And then, of course, very important that even various various financial institutions have come forward to really give loans, to give financial assistance all these things together. So overall, when you look at all this, it's extremely positive. The other part is the government has also come forward to say that if you have actually developed something, then maybe, and if that's really promising, then through the Atal Innovation Mission and such programs, the government has also encouraged that we will try and see a marketing option for you. And therefore, all this creates a very positive vibe in the environment. That's what is driving India today up in the innovation value chain.
Right, and that's something very, very significant, which shows in the innovation sector, in the innovation index also, which is created annually by the WIPO. Professor, since we're talking about the Indian IP system, help us and our viewers also understand what are the kind of innovations that can be, or creations that can be patented. What is the term of patent in India? What is the criteria for patentability in the country?
Yeah, very important. The term of a patent is 20 years from the date of filing, but one has to also remember that every year that you are, of the granted patent, you've got to pay a renewal fee. So if the renewal fee is not paid, the whole patent, the invention goes into the public domain, public can then use it as well. So there is a sort of a give and take in that particular system. Now, coming to what are the criteria, not all types of inventions are patentable. So there are two types of filters that we use in terms of patents, for patents. One is there is a filter of what is known as what are not inventions within the meaning of the Act. What it means is that under that is a whole list of inventions which the Act says, come what may, if they are of that type, then we shall not give you a patent in that, however great that invention may be. So there is a list out there, and that comes under what is known as Section 3 of the Patent Act. To give you an example, if your invention, in effect, is traditional knowledge, it will not be patentable in India. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that gives you a huge amount of protection for traditional knowledge and others. So if somebody comes with an invention based on traditional knowledge, you've got to go far. The benchmark for that has been raised enormously. That's the first part. Second, for example, that if somebody comes with other types of inventions which are against public order or morality, then you don't get any patent for it. So and that's the first filter. If you survive the first filter, the second filter is that whatever I have done as an invention must satisfy what is known as a condition of novelty on a global basis. The other part is my invention should not be obvious to a person skilled in the art based on knowledge that is in the public domain. And the third, that it must be useful. So very important that unless these criteria are satisfied, that's the job of the patent office to really act as a gatekeeper so that frivolous inventions are not given protection. Frivolous inventions are not given protection unduly in this country to deprive our citizens from using. Third and very important, that the changes that have been done in the Indian Patent Act, there are some aspects which raises the bar for patentability extremely high. And because the bar has been raised by putting in certain specific conditions out there, especially in the area of pharmaceuticals and others, it sort of gives you a lot of protection. The public remains, so that frivolous inventions and trivial inventions are not given patents in this country.
Right. Professor, since, we're talking so much in detail about the IP regime in India, and as an expert, you're helping us understand how significant it is for our growth. Do you also see the gaps that still persist despite the advancements that we've made over the years in creating intellectual property and protecting them in our country? Some challenges that we still need to overcome?
Absolutely. For example, if you take the new education policy, which is a tremendous breakthrough, I would say. Now, when you look at the new education policy, which is very strongly based on digital utilization of technologies in the digital framework. Now, when you look at that, we need to look at copyright laws. Then we are not looking at patent laws to start with. We need to upgrade our copyright laws to see that we are able to utilize the digital media most effectively and most cost effectively. Therefore, the copyright law will need amendments. And now the challenges are that how do you amend the copyright law, keeping in mind two factors. One factor where you say, I will give adequate and fair protection to the creator. The other on access to the available copyrighted material to the public, because I want education for all. I want an inclusive education system. And therefore, this factor, which is the new education policy, which is very current, is extremely important.
You know, you spoke about inclusive, and this leads me to my next question. The theme of World Intellectual Property Day this year is Women and IP, Accelerating Innovation and Creativity. How significant, how crucial is the role of women creators? And I mean, globally, if you look at the numbers, it seems quite less. So how do we encourage more women innovators and especially bring them into the IP system?
Right. So when you look at women innovators, if you look at it globally, yes, you're right. The numbers are not as high as we would love it to be. But what are the efforts that we have put in? First of all, I would say the Department of Science and Technology, the Department of Biotechnology, and all the other associated, departments of the government have come out with a large number of enabling factors where women are in a position now to really participate in a very strong, enabling, participative manner in the national ecosystem for innovation. That's the first part of it. The second, which is very important, is creating capacity. Creating capacity. Now, one of the programs which I would think is very unique in the world, which is India, and India has taken a lead in it. Not today. India has taken a lead since early 2000. And now it's actually riding heavily on that. For example, there's something called the Kiran IPR program of the Department of Science and Technology. So imagine the foresight that the government had, saying there are a large number of women who actually fall out of the system, because they have to go into the family way, etc., in the mid 20s and, late 20s. But then the question is, how do you bring them back into the system effectively and productively? And I would really compliment the Department of Science and Technology on the Kiran program, where they have gone into retracking of the women's careers, so that when they come back, they are reskilled, they're given the knowledge, the capacity building programs that have been taken on. They have taken on intellectual property rights as a profession, and as a result of that, today, after so many years, there are more than 800 or 900 women who have gone through the program, and more than 40% of them are actually practicing IP professionals in the country. So the ecosystem is changing, and I think the government needs to be complimented for something like that. So
You're
yes,
right.
challenges there, but I think we are facing the challenge.
You're right. In fact, I would have loved to hear Professor Pandit on this as well, on what the DPIIT is doing particularly to ensure how to include and make this journey of innovation and creativity more inclusive, bring in more women. At least India can take the lead in that aspect. But nevertheless, we seem to have lost connection with him. Professor Ganguly, I'll take one more question from you on because India is advancing rapidly towards becoming Asia's innovation hub. We aspire to become the global manufacturing hub as well. And for this, technology is something that, and innovation is something that we have to put all our efforts into. And more importantly, because the Prime Minister has now set a deadline for us, by 2047, India should become a developed nation. For that, we have to take a giant leap forward. Where do you think is India's capability? Because we've shown in the past how with the same kind of innovation, we've done it at a very low cost. So how do we capitalize on this advantage, and what should be the way forward?
I think two things are very important. I think whenever India has gone into the mission mode, be it space, be it atomic energy, be it whatever, including during COVID time, we have shown that in the mission mode, we operate very well. Now, we need to go, taking the Prime Minister's call, we need to go to mission mode on this. What do we need to do? Very important. Of course, the government is creating a lot of, is trying to create the ecosystem. How do we take advantage of that ecosystem? First, that we need to, create a lot of awareness of what innovation is all about and how the IP system would really enhance the innovation, with potential and extract value out of that. That's the first part of it. Second, in our educational and R&D institutions, we need to create those pathways by which the innovations which we do at our institutions are actually taken through beyond the walls of these institutions into the open space. And therefore, they should get commercialized. The role of academia, the role of the industry, the role of governments, the role of collaborations between nations is going to play a very important part. And I think so long as we lay down our policies and processes in that particular way, I'm sure we'll meet the Prime Minister's call.
Right, of course. So that is the objective on which India is working. The departments have brought about transformations with certain reforms, as Professor Pandit pointed out earlier on the program. Professor Unnat is back with us. So we lost connection with you, and in the meanwhile, I was discussing with Professor Ganguly how the theme for World Intellectual Property Day this year is Women and IP Accelerating Innovation and Creativity. We would love to hear from you how India is inspiring women creators, entrepreneurs, and inventors in the country, sir.
See, we must recognize the contribution of a woman in the Indian culture. They are the culture carriers, and entire Bharatiya culture is percolated generation to generation through a woman, and their role is pioneering. And in the modern era, the same spirit need to be continued. So woman has a strong potential to carry the IP culture in the society. And that's why I think the woman and IP accelerating innovation and creativity is the perfect theme. It is equally important that the contribution which West is making. And today, at the Intellectual Property Office and the DPIIT has organized one wonderful one-day conference on this. This is something which is highlighting the success of a woman towards addressing the societal challenges. If we see the woman Nandini Harinath, she was a deputy director. She is a deputy director ISRO, and how beautifully the Mars mission she has led, and establishing the connect from more than 80,000 kilometers, and addressing the goalpost to the ball need to hit perfectly within the goalpost. And this is something which is the precision required, which has a cutting edge IP. And then how the challenge which was put forward to the technology has been addressed by this woman. And there are many such Nandini Harinath in the society. It's a high time that we recognize the potential.
You're right, absolutely. And in fact, Professor Ganguly also earlier suggested how it's important to not just ensure that the pace of development is rapid, we also need to at the same time ensure that it is inclusive. And for that, we have to ensure that more and more women creators are given their due, and they are celebrated in the manner that we want them to on this particular day that is being observed on the 26th of April, the World Intellectual Property Day. Time allows me to take up only that much on the program today. Thank you to both my guests for joining me on the program, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well. I'll see you same time tomorrow now. Take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sunset TV.